Ignite your curiosity with Austin Next. We're watching Austin transform from a thriving ecosystem into a global superstar. With our host, Jason Scharf, we aspire to better comprehend the true nature of innovation. Together, we will uncover what makes a successful ecosystem and navigate the technologies shaping our future. Now let's dive into what's next.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Austin Private Wealth, a registered investment advisor focused on fee-only financial planning and investment management. Their mission is to serve affluent clients with personalized financial advice, fostering a trusted relationship that will endure for generations to come. Austin Private Wealth is not just about managing wealth. They're about inspiring you to embrace a future filled with possibilities and helping you architect enduring legacies. Their core values of integrity, service, caring, excellence, and growth are at the heart of everything they do. Connect with them today at austinprivatewealth.com.
Austin Private Wealth is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Austin Private Wealth and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advice may be rendered by Austin Private Wealth unless a client service agreement is in place. Investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.
Austin is adapting to and building the future in real time. I'm Michael Scharf. We are exploring and driving our transformation into the next innovation powerhouse.
I'm Jason Scharf. I'm a bioresearcher at UT to the assembly line worker at Tesla, from the musician on 6th Street to the coder at Dell. And with the founders, funders, and early employees at the next great startup, we are all Austin Next.
Austin Next goes boom. Today, the Austin Next team and the Boom ATX podcast team get together. Lee Snedaker and Glenn Hart have been talking about Austin for about as long as we have, but they have the advantage of a much deeper knowledge about Austin's history and culture. We had a wide-ranging discussion from real estate to startups, from music to restaurants, and much, much more. We think you'll enjoy the conversation as much as we did.
Glad to be hanging out with fellas today from Austin Next.
Yeah, we're happy to be here as well. You know, we've been following you guys for a little bit, and then at some point now, Apple Podcasts has started to recommend our podcast, and yours are the same. So the algorithms think there's some sort of interaction.
Oh, that's fantastic.
The algorithms are interesting. I ran an ad on Instagram for our new family truckster.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have seen it on LinkedIn. What did we buy?
We bought a 1989 Mercury Marquis Grand Marquis Colony Park wagon.
It looks very similar to the National Lampoon station wagon.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
And we're racing it to Vegas in a race. And so I just took a picture of it and ran an ad on Instagram, and the picture got 400 likes. And then I looked at the stats, and the vast majority of those were from Texas. So the algorithms are just like, oh, well, Lee's in Austin. He ran an ad. We'll pump out the family truckster to all these Texans, and they'll all like it.
Absolutely.
And I was telling Glenn, I've probably never liked a random picture on social media. So there's a bunch of people just sitting around liking family trucksters on the weekends.
Do y'all have a family truckster?
No.
Okay, well, you don't have family trucksters. But introduce yourself. I'm Glenn with Boom ATX. We got our co-host Lee here on the Boom ATX side.
Lee Snedaker,
Glenn Hart.
And then the Austin Next guys.
Jason Scharf here. 18 months now in Austin, and also do early stage investing and biotech executive.
And I'm Michael Scharf. I beat him by a week because he had to wait till the end of school before coming out. And I do a lot of work with growing companies as a board member.
Well, don't feel bad. I too am a transplant. 23 years or something.
I was born here. Didn't fully grow up here, but grew up in East Texas. So a little cultural shock for some people hearing my voice, apparently. The more I drink, the more the East Texas drawl comes out. Hilarious. But been here for, I guess, going on full time for 25 years. Yeah, we've really seen it change.
Welcome to Texas.
Yeah.
Really,
Change is the word.
Really seen the Austin Next proliferate here in the last 3-4 years. Feels like.
I was curious to see what time frame you were going to put, right? Because as far as I can tell, that's been the one constant in Austin, right? It has been changing. Even you go back to the mid 1800s. I know when we had John Butler on, he said like, "Oh, this is the 6th wave of innovation." And I'm like, yeah, if you think about it, it's probably like the 30th,
right?
As you kind of keep going back. And what's always been funny is the frame, whether this was a lot when I was like taking taxis down at South by. I was like, oh, well, if you had seen it when I came here 5 years ago, 5 always seems to be that magic number of just like, it's changed that. So it'd be fascinating to look at and have that conversation, you know, in 5 years from now when we're like, man, during the COVID migration, people, that was the best it ever was. And now it's all ruined. It's all that, you know, so it's these interesting increments that kind of go.
No, absolutely. Ron White, the comedian, one of his bits is, I don't know if he only does it when he's in Austin, but it's, I was talking to a cab driver and he said, yeah, Austin's pretty cool now, but man, you should have seen it when I got here. How long you been here? Since Thursday. Right. So yeah, everybody has their point of reference of when they cool Austin was, or what in their head was cool, or some people now is this is the best it's ever been. And we'll see what the future holds, what the next Austin is. I don't know.
I noticed Austin growing for years and years and the traffic getting heavier, but I didn't feel like I really noticed the kind of changes that happened when Elon and Rogan and, you know, right around COVID, like then it just like rapidly changed.
Yeah.
There was an interesting model. I know we talked about the fact that like all of us interviewed Peter Rex, and there was a model that he put that really kind of stuck with me when thinking about these kind of migration classes, just as that, like we're all coming into the first day of school together, right? And so the fact that you had kind of a group together, Rogan, Musk, Rex, us, like you see that might be some of the, you know, if we went back and look, I'm sure there is, you know, whether it's 180 people per day, but not only is there innovation waves, but there's probably migration waves that come too. And that culture and shifts during those kind of waves as well.
Yeah. I don't know that the population has spiked that much over the year. Driver, and he said, yeah, Austin's pretty cool now, but man, you should have seen it when I got here. How long you been here? Since Thursday. Right. So yeah, everybody has their point of reference of when they cool Austin was, or what in their head was cool, or some people now is this is the best it's ever been. And we'll see what the future holds, what the next Austin is. I don't know.
I noticed Austin growing for years and years and the traffic getting heavier, but I didn't feel like I really noticed the kind of changes that happened when Elon and Rogan and, you know, right around COVID, like then it just like rapidly changed.
Yeah.
There was an interesting model. I know we talked about the fact that like all of us interviewed Peter Rex, and there was a model that he put that really kind of stuck with me when thinking about these kind of migration classes, just as that, like we're all coming into the first day of school together, right? And so the fact that you had kind of a group together, Rogan, Musk, Rex, us, like you see that might be some of the, you know, if we went back and look, I'm sure there is, you know, whether it's 180 people per day, but not only is there innovation waves, but there's probably migration waves that come too. And that culture and shifts during those kind of waves as well.
Yeah. I don't know that the population has spiked that much over the years. I mean, I think it's been pretty constant. I mean, it's increased a little bit just year after year, but I mean, I feel like in the real estate development world has really spiked definitely since COVID, as far as, I mean, the announcements are getting bigger, $80 billion announcement potentially for Micron chips in Lockhart. Yep. It's an unfathomable number. Wow.
Well, I can tell you about the speed of change. So when we first decided to come here, July of 2020, we started looking in websites for homes, and we found a 4-bedroom condo on the golf course, $289,000 in the middle of Round Rock.
And you were like, wow, that's a steal.
Oh, for the price of the home I'm selling in San Diego, I'll buy that one and the one next door and the one next door to that, and I'll have some rental property kind of thing. When we got out here and started looking for a home, no.
It had changed that quick.
It had changed that quick, yes. I couldn't buy the one next door and the one next door. I could buy mine, but that was about it.
And now it'll be curious what the next, because Austin's never had that incredible run up escalation so quick. So in 2008, when the downturn happened everywhere else, Austin hadn't completely spiked, so there wasn't as much room to come down. Whereas now we've spiked significantly, and we'll wait and see if all the experts are right or not, if we have a correction coming, a significant correction coming. But I think still you just got to keep in mind what it's correcting from. And 2, we're still going to be well ahead of 2019, what the projection was. So
I mean, that's the concern I have, right? Like we talk about now that we are, the numbers in terms of like housing inventory, we're getting back towards normal. The question is, are we going to fly past normal and be towards, now we're in kind of a bear market? But, I don't think, I mean, obviously I haven't seen the immigration or the growth stats for this year, but they seem to keep going, right? We still continue to build. So, I hope it's, like the speed of growth of at least housing price attributed growth to go down, but not necessarily the prices, themselves to drop off a cliff, right? And then you see that kind of expansion, and it was interesting. I had to, drive out to Marble Falls this morning, and it struck me the same thing that struck me when I was driving when we went up to Dallas for the state fair was it's a nice area here. There's just nothing here versus the big contrast with like California. If you go out, an hour and a half, it's like, there's nothing here because it's the desert, and
there's nothing to
you wouldn't want to put something here either. Vegas is a unique situation where let's build in the middle of nothing, right?
Good point.
Yeah. The Austin, that's the one thing, the difference, like at some point, I think you can look at Austin's trajectory at some point to San Francisco. I don't know at what point of San Francisco we're aligning with, but San Francisco is so much different because they have the bay and they don't have a lot of expansion. So it is tied in there. Whereas Austin, we have realistically unlimited land available north, east, and south. Some environmental challenges to the west, but I mean, you talking Seguin to Killeen is 200 miles.
But it's not barren. It's not ugly. It's just
right. And it's just farmland. There's farmland. It's cleared farmland, flat. If you can figure out water and wastewater, we have the potential to keep developing for hundreds of years. Hopefully, not just in sprawl and continued the single family quarter-acre lots, driving in 45 minutes to work, but hopefully we have some changes, technology and flexibility that really help.
That's what we're seeing a lot now in Williamson County. Just saw some stats the other day. At least half the people who live there now work in Williamson County. Mm-hmm. So as we develop, it's this multi-hub kind of environment where, I can, if I live in Williamson County and I work in Williamson County, okay, it's an extra half hour if I have to go downtown for something, participate in something at the state capitol or whatever, go to UT, but I don't do that every day.
Yeah. And I think it's cost prohibitive now to work downtown for the vast majority of people. But I think at some point, just the mindset was, if I'm not somewhere centrally located, I'm cutting off half my employee workforce, right? If you're in Kyle, you're not going to work in Cedar Park. But now I think, and I don't know, Apple seemed like one of the first ones, right, with their campus. If you build it, they will come. We're confident. We're going to go out here, and we're confident services are going to sprout out around it. Dry cleaning, restaurants, all the services that maybe aren't there now. We're going to get there, and our employees are going to be able to live in Cedar Park, Leander, and drive 10 miles in not terrible traffic to work. Maybe there are some South Austin people that would want to work at Apple, and they'll move.
What'll be really interesting though is taking like Meta, right, which is not only has the campus near Apple, but now they just bought out 33 floors of 6 in Guadalupe, and I'm still really fascinated to see what their plan is from the perspective of, is it going to be just pure talent goes where you want? Like if you want to live up in Cedar Park, you go up to there. If you want to live downtown, you go there. Are they going to be functionally based? Like, okay, I don't care where you want to be. We're going to put all finance downtown. We're going to put all, however it's structured, and to see how that then plays out. Representative is, do we start leaning towards where the talent wants to be? But we all can go to the campus tomorrow if we have to get in and do a large, a big meeting or something. So I'll be very curious to see what they do.
I want to see them live downtown so that it stays vibrant and there's people. If they go live somewhere else, downtown will start to suck.
Yeah. What is y'all's thoughts on and it's just the 4 that I'm focusing on, the Meta, Google, Snapchat, and TikTok, with their towers delivering in the next, 6 to 18 months. That's like 2 million square feet for companies that have hiring freezes and pauses and work from home, protocols. Obviously they're going to pay their lease, and we're not going to have, foreclosed towers downtown. But yeah, we don't want vacant towers with the restaurants still struggling during the day because the bachelorette parties haven't come in for the weekends. We need a full 18-hour city or whatever they're calling it these days, really, to have that a healthy environment downtown.
Well, I think a couple of things. When we talked to Todd Runkle over at Gensler, and he talked about creating these combined live, work, play environments. And a lot of it was going to be on the backs of those companies you just mentioned. And his description was that every, 7, 8, 10 floors was going to be a floor with accommodations, with those kinds of places where people who work there could blow off some steam, get some dry cleaning done, eat, whatever it was kind of thing. When we toured Oracle's campus, the first thing you see when you get out of the car in the parking structure is there's a place where you can take care of all your dry cleaning. And then you walk in and of course there's the Starbucks and then there's the cafeteria and there's this and there's that. So I don't think downtown will ever be emptied if for no other reason than UT is 5 blocks away, 6 blocks away kind of thing. You're always going to have a group of people who want to live near the university. And you're always going to have a group of people that want to be able to take students from the university, undergrads and grads, and have them come and work where they are. I mean, I had a big operations center when I was working for a bank, and we were located right 2 miles from Cal State Northridge, and I hired 24 kids off campus because I wanted them to work in the afternoon making phone calls for me kind of thing. And we used to go and we'd get them, and like once a week we'd do a training session so that they could learn more about banking and that kind of thing because they were all finance majors. But given the location of the university, given the location of the state capitol, I'm never worried about downtown being emptied out. I think it's going to change over time. I think we're going to see different people. I don't know what's going to happen with the Facebooks and the Googles and the like, because, and you're more in commercial real estate than I am. What I've seen in Southern California is much more of this atomization of locations and then consolidation, and atomization and consolidation. So I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years Meta sold whatever property they had downtown to go and build more around their North Austin campus, and TikTok bought that, and wherever they are in, they brought people back into downtown. So change is constant. I don't think that's going to be anything we have to concern ourselves with.
But I wanted to ask you a question in that, and you mentioned this when you listed you said university, and then you said the Capitol. And so that is a unique thing, and something that's always struck me about the city is there seems to be a divergence that I can't put my finger on, because you have capitals like Albany and Sacramento that are, there's not anything there, right? That is everything. That is, because then obviously you have, us, Atlanta, and then a few other places where there is a vibrancy that's around. And I don't know if that's because of the Capitol, in spite of it, how that interaction plays together. But then speaking of, the downtown, like, okay, that makes it even more of a unique situation since we have the part-time legislature. So I don't know how all of that interplays into the actual effect on the footprint downtown, whether we have, because you're right, like the Google, like we may be in the hiring freezes, they're going to be able to pay the rent clearly. Right. So that will come back whatever that kind of strings. Now, but how does the Capitol play into this?
I mean, you touched on it with the they're only being in session every other year for however many months. So it's not a full-time addition to the downtown. There's a complete, noticeable ring around the Capitol that is older, shorter buildings, surface parking lots, struggling restaurants, because you can't survive on a good 9 months every 2 years of clientele. And they're doing the big Capitol complex expansion north of the Capitol along Congress, right there by the Bob Bullock Museum. And they're planning all these amenities, a huge green Texas Mall, they're calling it. So there's this huge grass lawn. And in my head, the typical state worker drives in to the underground parking garage at 8 o'clock, 7:58, whatever, takes the elevator to their office. At lunch, they have their sack lunch, and then they mall walk in the halls of the office, and then leave at 4:30, never going out to hang out and do whatever but yet it's also, it's right next to UT, but UT has their own malls and their own place. They're not going to cross MLK to go hang out on this grassy knoll. And the people downtown aren't going to go across the Capitol. So, I think it's just this kind of, for lack of a better word, dead man zone that just doesn't have the constant activation. The most positive thing I think is for the Dell Hospital, the UT Seton Hospital, and all they're trying to bring around it, and the life sciences and those types of things. So that kind of will help bridge that gap, and at least on that eastern side, really help to develop that and bridge. It's bridging the downtown from UT. Whereas the Capitol, you get visitors and protesters year round. But
and lobbyists.
Sure.
Well, are they any different from the visitors and protesters?
Depends on who you ask.
But you just said an interesting thing, and I want to parallel that, right? So, my background in areas all in the life sciences space, and there's been this push, and, I've said this publicly and different things, of that innovation center all around Del Med and the hospital and everything. But your description of the Capitol worker is how in many ways I would describe clinicians who are there, especially if you're doing like a 12-hour shift. Yeah. The idea that you're interacting and having these wonderful creative collisions with all the companies that are going to be around them. Like, no, they want to go home, Right. It's a long day, or they're at weird I mean, one of my closest friends back in San Diego is an ER doctor, and, he's been doing it for a long time. And I think the way he put it, like, you got to be 50 something to get a 9 to 5 structure. So he still gets like overnight shifts. And like, so this idea that I think it is extraordinarily valuable having Del Med and all of the infrastructure around it. And I think being the ability to interact and collide with it, but I think it becomes more structured. Like, hey, if I'm going to go run a pilot study with them, great, then I'm going to go there, work with the clinician. That's a set time. But this, like, we're going to run into them in the coffee shop like you do with all the other startups. And, hey, I have this problem, this idea. And he's like, I got to go back to patients. Right. Like, I don't have the time to just sit and chat.
Yeah. My pager just went off. I'm expecting surgery in 2 minutes. It's a 4-minute walk.
Well, we love our outdoor spaces, and the Moody Amphitheater is kind of part of all of that right next to Dell. Yeah,
we're pushing for a Moody podcast studio sponsorship.
It's the roof, right? It says Moody Studios.
Apparently, they're just tossing around money in Austin for entertainment.
Wait, count us in, man.
You want to get in on that? Or
we just got to apply for a grant, and you're the money man, so we can do that, right?
We've been talking about
History in banking.
We've been talking about it since the first podcast. All the confusion and all the different Moody venues, and finally KLRU did a article on people showing up at one of the other Moody theaters to an event that's, at the new Moody Center or Moody Arena or whatever it's being called.
I had a sense of it, and I didn't go in depth in the article. I saw the article, so I was like, oh yeah, there is like 6 things with all the same name. I'm like,
makes no sense. And I have no idea who the Moody's are and what their title is.
That's my next question was.
I think they're Galveston.
Moody Bank,
Well, I know, but that's not a...
But Galveston,
So
all the way back to like the 1800s.
Right, yeah.
Very, very wealthy family.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's like 3 of them here in town that dole out the money.
Yeah. So completely separate from the bank.
Oh yeah. You put in your request for a grant, and
because I reached out to a friend with Moody Bank when that article came out, and I asked for a Moody Amphitheater sponsor, and he thought I was serious, but he unfortunately had moved on to a different bank, so he was not able to help us.
A portion of their money has to be spent on the arts, so that's why you tend to see them jump out in front of all these music venues and
Well, we appreciate that because. Sure. Love the arts here. This is an amazing music town.
Is it?
Have either of you been to any of the Moody venues?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, it's time.
Yeah, I went to the Irwin Center for monster trucks with the kids.
You did, yeah.
Yes.
And you just went to the new Moody Center.
I did. Hot Wheels monster trucks at the Moody Center. It was ridiculous. It was the size of a McDonald's parking lot. There was no dirt. You could jump over one car, then have to slam on the brakes. Kids loved it, but it was kind of ridiculous.
And I went to the new PBR rodeo games.
Riding. Yeah,
this
call them
weekend at the Moody Center.
Yeah, so the Austin Gamblers.
We have our own rodeo team.
It's a new professional bull riding league.
We continue. We're moving up in the pieces, right? It'll be very interesting to see what happens with the Spurs coming up here. I still think it's been some interesting conversations. I think it's Portland and Minnesota, which I find as I don't know how much influence obviously the Spurs organization had on these teams, but it's an interesting pairing, right? Portland is fine. Minnesota's obviously on its way up. Like on one hand, I think you clearly missed out on having Dallas and Houston as possible opponents, or any of the marquee teams have the Warriors come in, the Lakers, the Celtics, the Bucks, or whatever. Now, somebody made a great point about, well, do you necessarily want Dallas or Houston? Because if, the Spurs come in and then lose to that team and Austin's allegiance might be up in the air for that moment, you're not coming in at Dallas like, oh, Luka's here and he's exciting and they won. Okay, that might be a problem. And then obviously if you could bring in the big names like the Warriors, which my understanding of where the Spurs are right now is still kind of a rebuilding that, playoff edge case. So coming in and having the Warriors beat them handily is not going to grow the base either. So
it's that LinkedIn debate of San Antonio versus Austin.
Oh, it's so ridiculous.
And I brought it up in a meeting last week in San Antonio, and everybody in the room was like they were going to beat me up when I was like, are the Spurs going to move to Austin?
I mean, the most impressive thing about San Antonio is their passion for San Antonio. I'm jealous of that. I will go on the record of admitting I'm jealous. Austin does not have that hometown passion. It's more of we're cool, whatever. Yeah, come if you want. But at the same time, I mean, the crux of the matter is San Antonio doesn't even have a stadium naming partner currently. About to start the season, AT&T's contract was up.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And they have a jersey sponsor, Swish or somebody from Austin.
And Dell just bought a piece of them.
And it does be. So it's you see the Moody Center and you see and that was all about your seating less than the Irwin Center. The Irwin Center was not a good venue, but you're seating less. It was all about the suite sales. That's where the money is, right?
I didn't realize the Moody is smaller than the Irwin in terms of total capacity. Oh, yeah. Interesting.
So it's the suite sale. That's where the money's made,
sure.
Right? You're not making your money on $20 tickets.
Suites and seats.
Wait, $20 tickets? No, come on.
For UT basketball.
Oh, for UT basketball.
Yeah,
okay.
Oh, yeah.
Concert
Spurs,
tickets
it's going to be $180, $200.
I mean, so at some point, UT didn't want to be in the entertainment business. They don't want to put on monster truck rallies, so they got someone else to build the new venue, and they're handling all the tickets, promotion, talent, everything. And they you just give us our schedule for home games when we need it, and in a really nice arena, and we're there.
And there's an interesting balance going on between, I'm a big fan of the mega region. I think there's a lot that we can utilize together. I was down San Diego last week.
San Antonio.
That's what I meant. San Antonio last week. I don't know what.
They're both San.
Did I say San Diego? I was in San Diego like 3 weeks ago, or whatever it was. I don't know where I am. And, and then, recently then I was in the month before, and there was this kind of moment that really struck me because there was this kind of thing of like, we need all these VCs from these areas to move down to San Antonio to see everything that we're doing. And I'm like, I had a podcast recording in the morning. I was down in San Antonio for lunch for the meeting and back by dinner. And actually, when I was there last week, I was even a tighter time frame. I had a bunch of meetings in the morning in San Antonio, went to the thing, was back here for a 3:30 meeting, right? And actually got here early. So there's a lot that can be had there. But what's really interesting, because I've got small kids, so looking at all the types of venues and different things, and we've gone to Six Flags, we've gone to Schlitterbahn, and then also we've gone to Kalahari, and it's funny now I've gone to a couple of water parks since going to Kalahari, and that's about it. It's 20 minutes away, it's right. Indoors, it's great. You have Six Flags, and then you've got Coda's building one. So
well, let's not get carried away.
You think that's not happening?
I wouldn't put it in the same sentence with Six Flags. I don't know.
Oh, not as badass as Six Flags. Like their amusement park. Have you been to the F1 amusement park?
Yeah.
I have, but I'm understanding that what they're building over the next 2 years, and correct me if I'm wrong, they are talking about building like some
that's what they're
regular level, roller coasters.
Yeah.
So
it'll be like their soccer team they had.
Yeah, I mean, and I wish them well. I mean, we got to get some revenue out there for them year round.
Sorry, Coda people.
Make sense. They did buy the couch potatoes, which was fantastic to keep that alive from the old couch manufacturer here in town. They had the huge on I-35. They were probably 20 feet tall couch potatoes on a couch. So they got them out there, and it's just as random as it sounds. But I wish them well. This is the 10th or 11th year of the F1 race, and there's not a single thing developed around the track. But back when it was announced, there was a land rush for farmland around that. People thinking I don't know what they were thinking was going to happen around the F1 track year round, but people thought that was their golden ticket.
It's kind of like the Capitol. Once a year, something happens out there.
And you can sell $20 parking in a pasture. But
can we handle another water park? With me, that'd be Kalahari.
No, it was an amusement park that they were building.
Amusement park.
Yeah. So it was more, I think obviously another water park, but But it's interesting because I've not been, well, we consciously stayed away F1 just because of the craziness, but haven't been for a race, but I've been for their, Trail of Lights. Yeah. They had the immersive Van Gogh exhibit. So been there a few times for stuff, right? And it'll be interesting and it's a unique venue. So I think the first time, actually it was the Van Gogh exhibit we went, it was like, oh, it's at CODA. I was like, where? I'm going to the racetrack for an art piece.
Was that actually in a tent in the parking lot?
Yeah, it was in a tent next door.
They do Cirque du Soleil in a tent there too.
Interesting. They also do a circus show in the parking lot at Barton Creek.
And now all the crappy metal concerts are out there.
Nice.
All the good shows are at the Moody Center.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have enough music venues. I don't know. We got, concerts cranking up at the Q2 Stadium. They figured out how to put plywood down on the grass. Keep the grass. Had Willie Nelson out there. Shout out to Lee for the tickets. That was a pretty good show.
And my pleasure.
Enjoyed the Willie Nelson concert. It was ridiculously hot and unlike any other 4th of July picnic, I guarantee he's ever had. But he's getting up there, so he probably enjoyed it. But no, to go back to the mega region thought, I'm curious y'all's take because I don't know DFW. I don't know the area that well, but I don't understand what is the overlap, the tie, the relationship between Dallas and Fort Worth, except they're reasonably close with an airport in the middle. So as far as a DFW being a thing, what is that thing? What is the benefits besides a central airport? And then it even seems like Dallas is not a thing much anymore. It's more north of Dallas in the suburbs that are really getting the PGA headquarters, all the
big
new
growth,
all the new centers. So
the mega regions and DFW being the primary one, it's important and it works because they're different, if that makes sense. And Dallas is, especially in the northern suburbs, especially becoming the headquarters place for Fortune 500 companies. Fort Worth is still the stockyards. It's still more of the middle-class manufacturing kind of thing.
If you got a miller, distributor, or a manufacturer,
Yeah. So it works together because I don't think there's much in the way of an overlap.
So then is it a thing? Or just coincidence they happen to be,
but I think
in the acronym,
two very big regions with an airport split down the middle to an extent.
I think that, so we dove into this. We had Cullum Clark on from SMU to really talk about, he called it polycentric geography. And the origin of that actually was, he was on a Freakonomics episode doing a deep dive into Dallas-Fort Worth. Okay. And I think the difference is the multi-hub nature, which is we as Austin are growing alone, and then obviously bringing in San Antonio, is the talent pool increases, the capital increases. So it's the fact that Plano has X and Fort Worth has Y and Arlington, but they're all, you are available as an idea, as talent, as capital across all of them. So you now have the ability to have it's not, I think Dallas is, 4 million people or something, but it's a 7 million person metro that is interconnected and is able to more easily grow across. So I think that's in what the change has been is, going back 100 years. And obviously I think we're starting to break that, where it was like, okay, you have the single central hub and it pull, like New York, Manhattan being the epitome of that, pulls from everything in, and then that's it, right? That's all of it. And that creates, I think, a little more monolithic thought and innovation, right? So one of the things that I see has been problematic with Silicon Valley recently is I'll call it consumer internet. Now, whether it's Web 2, Web 3, because if you look at like Web 3 that's going out there right now, it's much more of like, it's not fintech. It's much more of like, and I'm being overly simplistic, but we're going to make decentralized social media. It's all of the things that we're still making today. It's decentralized metaverse. So it's that same continuum, and it's become such a talent and capital suck that they're kind of like, you're stuck in that now. Like that's what you're going to do. When you have the broader region and the differences in those kinds of things, then it just allows us to have a greater diversity of the economy that can create, one, interesting creative collisions, and two, also different recessionary effects, right? Like if right now we're more of in a crypto winter, okay, so Miami went all in on that. So they're feeling the effects of that. It's not great, for the Web3 and the crypto companies and blockchain companies here, but it's not going to have a knock-on effect to the space industry, the EV industry, right?
Right. There's enough going on here.
It's interesting because to get back to your point, I think a number of these factors are promotion. There's this book called The Texas Triangle, and it talks about Dallas-Fort Worth. It talks about Houston and ASA, Austin, San Antonio.
You at least got it right. If there's ever going to be a mega region, sorry, San Antonio, it's going to be ASA, not SAA.
Right. Of course.
Let's just set that just on the happenstance that it becomes a mega region.
And from just a pure, I was an English major in college. It's pure language. ASA flows much better than SA.
Yeah.
Flying to SA.
It's when they go through the various cities, you could almost call it the Texas Polygon because there wasn't that much in terms of commonality between Dallas and Fort Worth. And it's interesting because in my corporate life, I used to be out in Dallas every 5-6 weeks. Our data centers and headquarters were in Plano and our head office was in Orange County. So I'd be out here with my product team and got to know Dallas a little bit. Didn't get to know Fort Worth at all. Spent a little bit of time in Houston. Never spent any time here in Austin before we moved out. But I know that every airport has a 3-letter designation, and that was the extent of how much the two cities were together, at least for me in my experience. If that's changed, great. You guys, all you listeners know how to get a hold of us. You know where our podcast sites are. Just get back to us and tell us we're so wrong. But they're different towns with different things. But and this is something that Chase and I have talked about on the podcast quite a bit in terms of how far you can pull for workers and how much is not going to be remote work anymore. And if you're, even Apple that's having all these problems, they want everybody at their desk 3 days a week.
September 5th.
Yeah. That's coming real quick.
Which I will say, I did see many instances where it said 3 times a week, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, they want everybody there or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think is what it is.
And it was like 10 to 2, maybe. That counts as one time.
Yeah, whatever. But think about it. If you're living in Houston and you're remote working most of the time because your function is you're a BD officer, you're a writer, you're a coder, and so you need to be there or you don't need to be anywhere. But if you want to get everybody together here in Austin, because that's where the headquarters is, great. Hey, it's 1:30 in the afternoon on a Monday, and I need everybody here Tuesday at 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, great. No problem. You can drive in from Houston. It's not that hard. It's totally different than what we considered this to be even 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Here in Austin and everywhere else. Telecommuting was a separate thing and everybody else worked in the office. Now it's a hybrid. That's where we're going to end up.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to work. I wouldn't want to have a job where I could 100% work from home, because that pretty much means I'm making widgets that anyone across the country or world could do. So where's my, how am I showing my value? How do I proceed, advance in the career ladder?
I've got the opposite experience. I've been working from home since mid-90s. Most of my clients are international.
Right.
When it's great when I got a call that includes Hong Kong or Singapore and Geneva, I'm the guy in the middle.
Yeah. I'm thinking more of the State Farm call center that was here in town.
Yeah.
That over COVID, everybody had to go home and work. And then they quickly realized, your manager can, instead of overlooking your shoulder, can still get on her headset and pipe in and listen to your call and verify. So you're just, and they're tracking, they know how many calls you're taking, you're making, you're settling. So then they said, we don't need this, 1 million square foot office, whatever it is. So they, it's up for sublease. And now those workers, they don't need to pay an increased salary for a call center job for people living in Austin, because it's so expensive to live here. You can live in San Antonio, El Paso, Indiana, India, wherever.
I wish my employees would come to work. It's lonely here.
No, but it's a different feel when you do have employees in the office.
The camaraderie and the creativity and the thought sharing, it's you can't replace it.
Right.
Culture and collaboration becomes an intentional exercise instead of something that's done in the background, right? And that's not something we're used to, right? You have the water cooler, and there's a balance, right? Whether you mandate people coming in the office or you structure it around. One of the things that I haven't seen anything since they wrote their big memo, but I'd be curious how it's playing out, was when Dropbox said, okay, we're going to, look, we are a digital sharing company, so let's eat the dog food. we are going for virtual digital, I forget which word they happen to use first. But we're transforming all of our offices to Dropbox studios, right? So the point is they are there for collaboration. They are there for, like if I'm sitting next to you guys doing PowerPoint, I don't know what the value of us sitting next to each other is. But if we're talking about like a deep strategy collaboration type session, great. I don't want to do that over Zoom. That's going to maybe want to poke my eyes out.
Yep.
But then, the pieces that happened in the background in those kind of informal networks, how do those work? I asked some questions on whether that really happens or not, only because if you work the open office Harvard study from a number of years ago, where there, I think it was Microsoft that was switching over, and they had these researchers who said, hey, we're going to actually look at the interaction data that had badges and all this kind of stuff before you went to open office, and then after you went to open office. And of course, the theory and the promise that's pitched, there's greater collaboration when you go to an open office. And that study came out and said, nope, absolutely not. People are IMing more. I mean, I went from a classic cube farm to an open office when I switched companies a number of years ago. And the first thing people said to me was like, oh, make sure and get like good noise canceling headphones.
Yeah.
I was like,
absolutely.
What's the point?
Right.
Like if
you're blocking everybody out.
Yeah, if I'm blocking everybody out, why were we doing this? Right. So
but you know why they were doing it, right?
Oh, it's cheaper.
Yeah. So that's where I'm convinced the hybrid model ends in the end is an every other day in the office hoteling model where you're sharing your desk with somebody every other day, and somehow maybe you switch, so you're in the office with different people. So you're having twice as many people in the same footprint. You're giving them the flexibility working from home.
Traffic's lighter.
I
don't want pre-COVID traffic.
Because at the end of the day, the corporations are going to do what serves them best. Usually the bottom line for the stock, and that's
if I can increase innovation and productivity and decrease cost, that is good for everybody, right?
Because there's no doubt you can be more productive most cases at home. For one day, you have something you need to do.
Sure.
It's probably going to be more productive if you just sit at home at your office kitchen table without kids and pets and focus and do it. We probably all agree to that. You get distracted in the office. So there is that balance. And I really feel that's where it's going to come down to for a majority of people is the hoteling every other day.
And it's going to make the hotels happy, because when you do have those group meetings, you're not going to be able to do it in a smaller footprint. You're going to need that larger room.
Every seventh floor, the option.
No. I'm talking about the actual hotel.
Oh, the actual,
filling up.
They're going to need to have those ballrooms that they can put, super fast Wi-Fi or whatever in, and let everybody bring their laptops in, and they're going to collaborate for a day.
Or maybe a $2 billion convention center. Do we have opinions on that?
Different business.
You just go stay at the Hotel Ella when the rooms are added to it.
Yeah. They're going to add enough rooms, and Peter's going to do a good job there, and I'm sure it's going to be decked out and it's going to be great.
Cigar bar.
Has anybody bought any Hotel Ella?
I have not.
I have not.
I did not qualify. I asked if he could co-sponsor me, and I got a sure.
You'd qualify if you just filled out the paperwork.
Is that all it was?
It's funny
it's
that
on the honor system.
There's paperwork for the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, that's too bad.
That's a whole nother podcast topic.
Well, it's interesting, right? So I think blockchain as a technology obviously has value, and we've dove into the Hotel and the decentralization of the ownership, and my understanding of a REIT versus this, and Peter was nice enough to kind of like structure that out, right? And like, look, me personally, I've got a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of Ethereum. I think that Ethereum is more interesting, and without even getting into the whole merge, which is beyond my understanding of just like, okay, I think it's supposed to be faster and cheaper, right?
Use less energy.
But I think, but I think the smart contracts, and I think that's interesting. I will be surprised to see what happens with Bitcoin now, because, I invested in it more as a proxy for the space, right? And then now we have Coinbase can serve pretty much more easily method of a proxy for the space, and I'm sure we'll have ETFs and the like as well. And then also the fact that it's not, it's acting more like a risk asset than it is acting like an inflation hedge. It's like, oh, well, that would have been nice if it had acted the way we thought it was going to act right now,
The big advantage of what Peter's doing, and in more general using NFTs for property, is it's easier to transact. It costs a lot less to transact, and it allows more people to transact. And if we can do that, then we were able to bring in the kinds of funds that will enable people to do on a more general basis. I'm on the Texas Blockchain Council's policy committee, and we're looking at how to make financing easier using NFTs. And one of the guys said, yeah, right after this meeting, I'm meeting with Moody's, and 2 days from now, I'm meeting with S&P. And I'm like, go, because once they approve these formats, then you're not going to have the problem of funds coming into EFT-based investments, whether it's a Hotel Ella or somebody who wants to get a, quote, mortgage, unquote, using NFTs for their property. And that's where you get lots of interesting variations like co-ownership of a property or selling off some of your equity and doing all this interesting stuff. Because coming out of the banking world, when my bank came into Texas, we had to learn a whole set of rules because at the time, Texas didn't allow home equity loans. They were one of the last states to allow that. And it was like, what are we going to sell? How are we going to do this kind of thing? So
we were talking about it briefly this morning, just with regards to my understanding, if they really figure out how to incorporate blockchain into real estate and it reduces some fees, it takes some middlemen out of it. Are some of those middlemen big enough that they don't want that to happen? Because then they're going to lose that fee structure. It's like I'm in the low voltage world and I'm trying to take on like Romex and the big wire manufacturers, and they're quick to kind of stifle you because they don't want their business to change.
I think it's it's not going to happen overnight. And I think is where I see it potentially taking off is apparently there's two younger generations that are not like the rest of us. And so I think they would be more apt to jump on board, and just like they weren't in, probably very stereotypical, probably they weren't into investing in stocks until the Robinhood GameStop deal, right? And then that got them for whatever reason. Then they think now they're stock traders and they're doing it. Same thing with NFTs. Just because it's an NFT, a blockchain, whatever the term is, they're like, oh yeah, absolutely, I'm in. I'm going to invest in an office building because I can buy it with my Bitcoin.
Well, but I have absolutely no concern about the big title factories, First American and those kind of guys, trying to crush blockchain. I'm sure that they've got plenty of people in their campus who are figuring out exactly how they're going to make money with it.
And how to get a piece of the pie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, we used to be in the business. We used to take all this property data. We'd ship it off to the Philippines, have it all key punched, and then sent back the next morning. Well, now I just eliminated those guys. Cool. I can do that. That's easy. But what we're doing with the data, how we're doing with it, the creativity around what kinds of instruments we can create using NFTs as a proxy for a traditional mortgage. Don't worry about the big guys worrying about this. They'll find a way to make it happen, and we'll just follow along and take advantage of pieces we can.
I imagine you're both going on Wednesday to the Blockchain Council meeting at Hotel Ella.
I can't make it. Yeah, I wish I could.
I'm just a passive observer in this space.
Gotcha.
It's been actually fascinating to see it as blockchain keeps coming up in the health space, because it is a hammer, looking for a nail. Mm-hmm. Like a great example is like, hey, we're going to build, blockchain, and there's 100 companies, some of this, a blockchain that's going to have the data, be living with the patient, and it's going to go around. I'm like, okay, the problem is not the database. The problem is hospital A and hospital B don't want to share data. I could have
businesses,
right? I could have closed data. I could blockchain. I could have a regular, database. It isn't going to solve the problem, right? That you're trying to. Now, I think there probably are use cases in this space, but mostly I haven't quite seen it yet. And so